All right, what's up, Bulldogs? Today I am here with Noah Revoy, and we're going to be talking about a few things here. I had titled this Masculinity and Relationships. Noah is a relationships coach, and I had a chat with him maybe like about a month ago or so before I went to 21 Con. And we had a really good chat. We have a lot of things, I think, in common, a lot of philosophies that we share here. So we're going to talk about some of that. We're also going to talk about one of my favorite subjects that agency for men. I call it having self-sovereignty. But this is a big focus that Noah's been focusing on for a while here. So I think you guys are going to enjoy this. It's going to be an interesting discussion here. So yeah, welcome, Noah.
Thank you very much, John. It was a real pleasure to have that other conversation with you and see how well we were lined up. I think the mature men in the manosphere are aligning around this very positive message of men taking control of their lives and even taking control of the communities around them and taking the steps to stabilize those communities and to stabilize society in general. And this is a really positive thing that I'm seeing. And I believe it's going to have a ripple effect for the next few generations. I think we're headed in a good direction.
Yeah, I'm really liking that. I'm seeing this sort of organization starting to come together as guys that really kind of are on the level of having it more figured out, are finding that we have so much in common, and then we're pulling guys together. I think of it as just the model of society, right? I think that throughout society, like the reason why we have society is because strong men with swords or guns have created borders and then held those borders, and that creates the civility that we're able to enjoy as a society. And it's the same thing here as what I see is it's kind of the manosphere is kind of in the Wild West. Now we've got guys that have a little bit more experience in life, that have a little bit better leadership qualities, and I see this coming together, and I see us building this kind of society within the men's space, which is so positive, and that positive message is so good. So
yeah, 150 years ago, we had dozens of men's organizations and men's societies, and they worked together to stabilize society. Even the church, for example, was mostly a masculine institution, and we've lost a lot of that. Either they have been undermined or co-opted by people that don't appreciate the kind of order and masculinity that men bring to society, or they've just simply disappeared and been replaced by the state, which functions as a gigantic mother and father to everyone, taking away our agency by not allowing us to feel the effects of our decisions, either good or bad. They blunt every signal that we would normally get from our behavior. And so we're rebuilding those now as we see that what replaced them, that is mostly the state, is actually quite fragile. We've seen this since COVID, how fragile the state is, how difficult it is to deal with even a fairly minor problem, and they often make it worse. And we're saying, look, we can't rely on that. We can rely on our brothers. We can join together as men, and we can look after ourselves and our wives and our children and our families and our friends. And that is really going to bring stability back to society again.
Yeah, I agree 100%. When as you're saying that, I'm thinking about Jack Donovan's book, The Way of Men, and where he talks about at the end of the book about gangs of men. And the first time I read that, I was like, I'm not sure if I agree with that. That sounds kind of, but then more and more as I'm seeing things unfold, I'm like, yes, that's really the root of, because at a level that we have now, we can't have a tribe this big. It's too big for our brains. I think there's some study that's like we can have like 200 connections or something like that. I can't remember what the exact number was, but yeah, what you're saying is very true. It's like as men, we have to care for our tribe, like who are the people close to us, and worry about those things rather than trying to, we can't create this utopia. Everyone that tries to create this utopia ends up, making the opposite of it, making a purgatory or a personal hell for the people living in it, because it has to be at that smaller level.
Absolutely. When I read that book, The Way of Men, it really clicked with me because I had to do something similar. As a child, early adolescence, the area that I lived in was quite violent, and we had a very corrupt school system, and there was a lot of pedophiles working at the school. And some of the other kids that had relatives that had been abused, they and myself, mostly under my direction, we got together, we formed our own gang, and we harassed the teachers and the school employees, and I won't say exactly what, because a lot of it was criminal, but we drove them out of the school.
Yeah.
We pushed them until they had to leave. And I realized that as a kid, I had very little power.
Mm-hmm.
But I get together with 50 other kids, and we cover each other's asses so that nothing comes at us we can't see, and we can do what we need to do to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. I mean, and you see this unfolding right now. Is as much as I dislike the kind of victim mindset of the things that we've been seeing going on, it has taught a very important lesson, which is this: is that violence still wins, and that when you are in a gang, you are protected, and you can outmaneuver and you can outforce other people. It's interesting because, you know, again, it's not that I'm promoting, you know, that kind of thing that they're doing, but they're, you know, they're proving that you can have an irrational view, but if you use the threat of violence and actual violence, and you are organized in a gang, that you will have a certain amount of power that, you know, that people wouldn't think that you would wield. That it's still, even in as modern as society is today, that level of organization and violence is still a very, very powerful thing. As you see governments and people succumbing to this, basically bowing down to what we're seeing unfold here. And it's, I think that was a wake up call, like, you know, that we're still the same, you know, the same animals to some degree that we've always been. Like, we have this sort of, you know, facade of civilization, but underneath it all, it's still the same operating principle, same operating system that's always existed.
Yeah, and as we get, you know, if we get hungry, we get deprived, we get a collapse of law and order, and a collapse of what is we've come to expect. People very quickly revert to what I call prison rules. So they go, you know, we've been in prison since COVID lockdown started, and people are starting to think like that, which means you pack up. It's physical proximity makes your team. You know, it's not an internet team anymore. You pack up, you get together with your neighbors, and you divide up, and there's a very clear division between an us and a them. And that happens organically. That's not something we're going to be able to fight.
Right.
And as more pressure is put upon us, we become more defensive in that way. And it is a natural thing. It's natural law. And we've had this narrative pushed on us for a long time that Western civilization is the culture of the rugged individualist. But that's not true. We are actually a very social culture. We're a very pro-social culture, pro-cooperation culture, not just in times of difficulty, but in order to take advantage of opportunities, we also tend to cooperate very well. And this is why we see some of the highlights of civilization, the wonderful cathedrals we built that took, you know, sometimes 40, 50 generations to build a cathedral. That is the work of a highly organized social structure of people voluntarily cooperating and working together. You know, this is really what makes us powerful in society, is that cooperation and that teamwork. And it really is based on small teams federating with other teams to form a bigger team. And there's that hierarchy that spreads out.
Yep, I agree 100%. Yeah, and it's interesting just watching as people are trying to tear down that because they want a more egalitarian type of system, whereas those hierarchies is what has created, you know, all of the great technological advances and the societies that we have today, because it just doesn't work. You know, the egalitarian ideal doesn't work. It doesn't sufficiently motivate people. It doesn't bring about that I'd say that instinct that we have as men to compete, to advance ourselves, to have our group win out, which is what drives us forward.
Yeah, and it's interesting because some of the reporters that are kind of spying or integrated in there with the left violent protesting groups, they've been exposing that even these groups are saying, hey, in order to be successful, we have to organize it into a hierarchy. And then other members of the group saying, but aren't we anarchists, so we can't have a hierarchy? Right. And they, in order to be successful at something, they have to recognize that their core foundational philosophy is flawed. Yeah. And there's got to be some cognitive dissonance in that. Even for people that are so ideologically possessed, there's got to be some cognitive dissonance, to the point where they were warning their members not to go to gyms and get fit and get strong and learn how to fight,
Right.
because it'll make them lose their equalitarian beliefs.
Yeah, yeah. I saw some articles along those lines, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. You know, to have that kind of but it goes so far. It's like, you know, it's just like when people are like, well, how could a cult people join this cult and believe these crazy things? And it's like, well, you know, it's once it's not like you decide to join a cult and then believe crazy. It's because you're in the cult that you believe the crazy things. Like the cult comes first, like the joining a group, like merging your identity into the larger identity is what happens first. And once you've done that, then you're susceptible to any kind of ridiculous belief, because whatever the narrative is, that's what, you know, what people what you're going to believe, which actually brings us to the, you know, point that I think, you know, we can discuss some about this idea of free agency, because I like this idea of having this sovereignty over your life, as I call it, and you know, and this is the opposite, right? So many people join a cult of some sort, even within the men's space here, the manosphere, if you will. We have so many cults, we really do. Give me your take on the free agency and why it's so important to have agency as a man.
So we have two main cultures. We have the culture of submission and the culture of sovereignty. And the culture of submission displays itself in various ways. People joining cults, people becoming fanatics for something. It could be religion, could be politics. It could be have to do with manosphere issues as well. And they are looking for something to submit to give them power and to take away personal responsibility. They want freedom from responsibility, not freedom from oppression. They're okay with being oppressed a little bit if they can get away with abdicating responsibility. And then there are the group that is concerned with their own sovereignty, the culture of sovereignty. And they're looking for freedom from other people oppressing them, from control. Now, we never get that completely in modern society, but we can have a very large measure of sovereignty. You have to have pure and perfect agency or sovereignty. We would need to be omnipotent, and then, you know, only God could do that level of it, because we are limited in time and space and in power that we have. But what agency is developing. First, we have to have a recognition that we are personally responsible for the thoughts that are in our head, for the emotions that we have, and for the actions that come out of those thoughts and emotions. And once we recognize we're personally responsible, we then need to start taking control of those things. And that's an incremental process. We're always under the process of developing greater agency. And, you know, sometimes we get old, we might lose a bit of it. We might go a bit senile and we lose a bit. But we work at that process, and we don't do it in a vacuum. There are a lot of incentives in society that should, hopefully, if we're in the right kind of society, should encourage us to display agency and reward us for doing so. We do live in a society, though, that's the opposite. It encourages us to abdicate our agency, to go with the flow, because it makes us sheep. It makes us easy to shear and easy to take advantage of. We become manipulatable. And once a man develops a high enough level of agency, he's no longer able to be manipulated. Some people say that's taking the red pill. That is accepting the world for the way it really is, which makes you impossible to manipulate. And I think it's accepting yourself for who you really are as well, recognizing your own weaknesses and building psychological and social structures around yourself to help you to fulfill whatever your goals are. So, you know, if you're a married man, you want to create incentives for you and for your wife to be loyal to each other. You don't want to create incentives to cheat on your wife. You don't want to put yourself in positions that constantly test your loyalty to your marriage vows. And it's not just loyalty to your wife, it's loyalty to your own honor, that you keep the word that you said you would keep. You know, if a man's cheating on his wife, he'll cheat on his business partners, he'll cheat on everybody, because he's demonstrating a lack of honor. So it is a process of creating around yourself this structure, both internally and externally, to help you have control over yourself. And there are things that a men can do, exercises, just like we can develop physical control over ourselves. we can develop psychological control over what we think and what our emotions are.
Yeah, yeah, I agree 100%. And I always think of it as that trade-off. I mean, like you said, that we can't have 100% agency because we always have to trade off freedom for security. And to some degree, we want some level of security. We could have the wild, wild west, and we can have it where it's like a zombie apocalypse, and everyone can, every man for himself. But there's a certain amount of security that we'd have to give up in order to have that amount of freedom. But which we're probably not willing to trade. But I think we've moved too far now in the sense of like trading security. Even I think of it as like a job. Like when you have a regular job, you have a degree of security, like because you get a paycheck every month or every couple of weeks or whatever, and some stability. That's security there. But your freedom is quite limited. You don't have that sovereignty. Whereas as being an entrepreneur, when you become an entrepreneur, I was just coaching one of my coaching clients today. He was messaging me yesterday. He's like, I just hired 2 people and now my revenue is going down. I'm like, this is what happens. It's like you want that freedom, you want that sovereignty. You're going to have to give up that security. You can't have both. But it's amazing. Just this year has taught me how easily people will give up their freedom and sovereignty in order for this, just a small amount of security, which is a scary place. And I don't think it's all historically been like that for men. I think we've become soft.
And this is a little bit more specifically to Europe. Europe actually was very hard to cross. There were raging rivers that made a lot of frontiers. There was a lot of geographical barriers that tended to break it up into a load of small kingdoms. And so it was difficult for kings to have professional armies. Professional armies in Europe are a very recent thing, whereas, say, in China, they had professional armies, and in India for more than 1,000 years. So what would happen in Europe is it was up to each man, able-bodied man, if you wanted to vote in the commons, so if you wanted to participate in decisions about what would be done for the common good, you had to come to the vote with your armor and sword, and you got an extra vote if you had a horse and you had it outfitted, and if you brought more men with you, you got a bigger vote. And so men were strongly encouraged to make the sacrifice necessary to be part of the martial class. And those men who would provide, and not everyone was forced to do that. That was if you wanted to participate in decisions about how to deal with other nations, how to defend your own country, you're going to pay for that in blood. Yeah. And in exchange for that, you win the right to have sovereignty. That is the right to make decisions along with other men. What's going to happen. We've focused so much in the last 75, 80 years on our rights. We get rights stacked on rights, stacked on rights. Right. The reality is all of our rights are gifts granted to us by the men who are willing to defend them.
100% correct. So many people miss that point. It's so I think lost because we are a generation now that hasn't faced a major world conflict. The last of the men that fought in World War II are dying off. There's very few of them left. This generation doesn't remember a time where they had to fight for those rights or make those sacrifices. And you're absolutely 100% right. It's a scary place to be because of people just assuming that they deserve these things when they're not willing to pay the price. Like you said, I like that, paying the price in blood. That's historically been how you got your freedom, and now we take that for granted.
Well, if we think about it, if we are to, rights are a good, sovereignty is a good, civilization is a good. It's a service produced by men who are willing to defend it. They're the ones that produce that service. And if we demand rights from those men, but we ourselves are not willing to pay the price in blood, then we are a parasite. We are taking away from people. We're trying to force them to work for us for free. Right. Except we're trying to force the men that are fighting, the warriors, to give us something. And there's only one tool that parasites can use for that. It's what we call GSRRM. It's shaming and guilting. It's all verbal.
Yeah.
It's all social pressure, because you can't force those men. Those are the men that have the monopoly on force. Those are the powerful men. You have to shame and guilt them. And we've seen a lot of that happening, men coming back from Vietnam, and I disagree with the basics, politics of the war, but the men that were sent there many against their will, and many of them went there thinking that they were doing what was right for their nation and their families, and they were terribly disrespected on the way back.
Right.
And the idea was to instill into these men a shame for their desire to defend their people. If you even talk about your desire to defend your family using force nowadays, you'll get shamed for it. And in many countries, it's illegal.
Yeah.
This goes against everything of natural law. It goes against the entire history of Western people to outlaw self-defense. This is the greatest human rights disaster that we could have, is to create an entire generation that thinks that defending themselves is wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have so many of these false rights, like you're kind of saying here, is it's, you have the right to not be harmed by someone else, and you have the right to your property. That's it. Like that. That's what, like, any other right is given to you, is granted, is like you said, is someone else's labor, that you are, if you demand that right, it's slavery. You're putting them under that compelled force to work for you, to do something for you. Whereas you're entitled to not be harmed by another human being, or to have your property. But aside from that, everything else is up for grabs. You have to be the one that's securing those other rights. But somehow we've gotten away from that. Even so many men, I see this victim badge being lifted up as an honorable thing now. What do you think the solution is for men? I know a lot of guys that they're probably watching this. They're struggling. A lot of men are struggling with their masculinity. They're struggling to find their way, because they're so used to this. This is what society has taught them. They haven't seen the way, to regain their sovereignty. How do men today step up and take back their sovereignty?
If I could wave a magic wand and make men do only one thing, it would be to get physically fit.
Okay.
The reason is it has a whole load of physical and psychological changes to men. The more physically fit you get, the lower your anxiety levels are. And anxiety is a warning system in the body, and it's telling you something is wrong. And you need to do something, because in the future, in an indeterminate period of time, there is going to come upon you some difficulty, and you're not ready for it. And that's what your anxiety is saying. The more physically, I rarely meet a truly strong man, especially a man that knows how to fight. I rarely meet one who says to me, I got this problem with terrible anxiety.
Right. Yeah.
They're the chillest dudes ever. They don't worry about stuff. They don't know what's going to happen in the future either. We're just as blind to the future as every other man, but we know whatever happens, we can handle it.
Yeah, and I think that's key. Yeah, and that's, a lot of guys ask me all the time about how to develop mental toughness, right? Because that's what I'd kind of equate that to, is mental toughness, emotional mastery. And what I always tell them is that there's a lot of ways to develop mental toughness, of course, but the guaranteed way is through physical toughness. Because if you go through physical discipline, if you discipline the body, you will discipline the mind. And that's something that you can absolutely control. Whereas other methods of developing mental toughness, there's ways to do it, but it's not so, if you get this, you'll get that, right? It's like, I can tell you, if you go and you start training physically hard, that you will develop that mental toughness, because you have to, in order to do that. And I think, like, what you're saying, once you have if you put yourself through a lot of shit, when the world dumps shit on you, it's not as big of a deal, because you're willing to stick your hand in the fire. So if a few embers from the flame hit you, you're not it doesn't phase you as much. Whereas I think guys that haven't actually pushed themselves physically, haven't developed that level of physical discipline and mental toughness, it's like every little thing is so, it's like a kid scraping their knee for the first time. I mean, when kids are younger, the pain is so great. Like, every little boo-boo is such a huge thing. But as you go through life and you become an adult, you develop a little bit more tolerant for that. I think it's the same thing. But we see, again, today, so many weak men that have never actually put themselves through hard times. Instead, they see the world as dumping on them. They see everything through that victim lens.
And you could think about like this. You ever met a farm kid? You know, get some 16-year-old farm kid that has worked like 40 hours a week, almost his entire life on the farm with his dad before and after school. You shake this kid's hand and he's stronger than almost every adult you meet. And he's tough as nails. They're usually polite. They're usually calm and chill. Sometimes they're not super sociable because they haven't had as much socialization, but they're tough. They're tough as nails because they're raised in that environment. And we don't see that so often anymore. Back when 80% of people lived on a farm, worked on a farm, and the vast majority of young men at least spent part of their youth doing heavy physical labor. We had a tougher society. It was the physical component made you have to get mentally tough, and it was part of your growing up. You know, with my son now, I'll take him and do some farmer's walks, and I'll say, okay, I'm going to pick up my weights, you pick up yours. Yeah. I want you to walk and then walk back when you want. Okay. So he'll walk to a certain point. He'll walk back. I say, okay, now we're going to do it again. But I want you to tell me when you're tired.
Yeah.
So we're going out and he'll say, okay, I'm tired now. And I go, okay, take 10 more steps. Okay, 10 more steps. And he's like, he's thinking we're done now. No. We're going to turn around and walk all the way back now. Yeah. I can't do it. I said, I know you can do it. You don't know, but I know you can do it. We'll walk all the way back. Now he'll walk this way. He'll do twice as much effort as if he does it when he perceives that he can't do anymore.
Yeah.
Because our body is always trying to find the lowest energy escape route to whatever problem we have, because our ancestors were always running on too little food. So they were always trying to find the easiest, laziest way to do everything. And that's our genetic predisposition. And we have to fight that. We have to train ourselves out of that. We have to train ourselves into the fact that we actually can do a lot more when we're pressed than we think we can do. Most people never get that opportunity. Their dads don't push them. School doesn't do that anymore. Gym class in school used to be brutal. You see those old pictures of schools from the 20s, and they got this ladder that goes up to the clouds, and then there's a monkey bar across it, and you're 30 feet off the ground. And the kids, that's where they would play. That was a normal day. Yeah. And nowadays, everything's padded and covered in rubber, and even then, it's probably closed down due to COVID. So the kids are sitting inside 6 feet apart in a bubble. You know, we've literally bubble wrapped kids nowadays, and we wonder why they grow up to be soft men.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with you. And it's interesting also, that's, speaking to your point about what the farmer carries too, that's why it's so important for men to find groups of men to be around, because you can only push yourself so far. For example, I'm training for a 100-mile race right now, and I did my run this morning, and I have it prescribed by my coach. And when I went to do the run, I was doing a fartlek run, so I was running basically intervals. This morning I was like, yeah, I don't know if I can do it, but I had to do it because it was prescribed, right? So if it were just up to me, as tough as I like to think I am, I probably would not have gone as far. Like your son with the farmer carries, I probably say, okay, that's as far as I could push it. But when my coach has put it down there and said, you have to do this, I mean, in my mind, I have to do it, right? If he's put it, but then that pushes me. And the same thing being in a group of men, nothing's better than going out to the gym and lifting weights with guys, and you're pushing yourself further. Having that it's not just the competition element, but just like guys that know that are going to push you to your limits. We thrive in that environment. That's how you find those, what you think is the limit, and then go beyond that, which is so critical.
No man wants to be the weak link in his tribe.
Right, exactly.
And no man wants to have a weak link in his tribe. And so we help each other. And we can be a little bit brutal in the way we do it. I always have this conversation with men about how to talk to other men versus how to talk to women, and telling them that you can't talk to your wife the way you talk to your friends. Right. And it's the old thing of, there's two guys and one's kind of fat, and the other guy will say to him, dude, you're getting kind of fat. You really need to lose this. You want some help? But you can't say that to your wife, right? You can't do that. No. And this is why you can see men, when they get serious about something and they have a group of supporting men, their progress in any field just blows everybody out of the water. You have a coach, you're going to progress. It doesn't matter what you're doing, if it's physical, mental, career-wise, you're going to progress far faster than you can on your own. much faster, because you need that help from someone who is brutally honest with you and can push you and isn't going to have an excess of mercy for you, because he's having mercy for future you, not present you. You know, he knows future you will be happy with how far you've pushed him. And even if present you is suffering and saying, no, I want to stop, you know, he knows how to push you past that. And it's why I recommend coaching for people, whether, you know, I do coaching, but even if you're not with me, whoever you get coaching for, it's going to help you. And it doesn't matter what field you're in. Nobody at the top of their field is doing it alone. They always have mentors and coaches.
Oh yeah, for sure. One of my favorite books is Relentless, which is, you know, written by Tim. Not I can't remember his last name, but he coached both Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, and you know, and he talks about just like, I mean, you think about like someone that's that skillful, but they still have a coach. Like Tiger Woods has a coach, but it's so true. It's so important to have that. And again, I think it's important also to understand the different side. Like you said, you can tell a man, you can critique a man, and you can say, hey, you're fucking lazy. You need to get your shit together. You're, you know, fat ass. And, you know, is that all you got? But, you know, so, but women have to be encouraged and lifted up if you want to move them in that direction. Whereas it, you know, the same thing doesn't work with men and women. If you tell a woman she's lazy, and, you know, you try to like motivate her by coming down on her, by coming hard, she's just going to get discouraged. Whereas again, I think a lot of guys handle men too much with kid gloves too, right? It's like, you know, when I'm coaching someone, I give it to them. You know, it's like I gotta give it to them, because I know that's what gets guys going, is like, you know, proving themselves. Like I'm going to hit you pretty hard because I want you to respond. But yeah, definitely having
men
that coach.
Do that as care and love from their brother. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he must care enough about me to have told me the truth. If
Exactly.
you're handling a guy with kid gloves, he perceives that as you don't care enough about him to tell him the truth.
Exactly.
It's seen as a negative, and you get seen as wishy-washy. That's why coaches are usually so brutal, because they have to be strong. You know, it's strong men make strong men. Weak men don't make strong men.
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, I say all the time with guys, like, if you want to become a strong man, be around strong men. That's the best formula for doing it. You know, it's so, there's so many things that you can learn on your own, or that people can teach you. But hey, if you're around strong men, you're going to become strong. That's just how it is. So
yeah, you should always be, you know, I usually ask this question to clients who are trying to achieve a very high level in their life. Would you rather be the strongest, smartest, whatever it is area they're trying to achieve, and most successful man in the room, or the least successful man in the room? And it tells me a lot about them. If they want to be the most successful man in the room, they're not really looking for challenge, because they already see themselves as at the top of what they're going to be, which is okay. Maybe they're looking to learn how to mentor other men and bring them up to their level. You know, if you're an older man, that might be where you get satisfaction from. But if they're telling me they're okay they're humble enough to go into a room where everybody is better than them, then I know that they're looking to grow, because they have that mindset that I'm going to fit into this room if I stay here long enough.
And I feel like it's good to have both of those kind of relationships as a man, right? To have some environments where you are the mentor, where you're the leader, but then to have other environments where everyone is above you and you're being pulled up, because you learn from both of those things, right? It's when you help people up. What I found is that a lot of the things that I didn't know I knew, that I learned about myself, was from when I tried to explain something or try to help someone else with their problem, because I couldn't see the problem. And I didn't really have a conceptual idea of my philosophy in life until I had to explain it. Like, oh yeah, this is why this is wrong. This is why, you know, in mentoring someone else. But then, you know, on the other side, being around guys that are better than me, that was one of the things that raised my set point to, you know, because I remember even just physique wise, even just running and stuff like that. I thought I was hanging around people that weren't doing any kind of physical exercise, as you know, when I was a software developer. And then I started meeting other YouTubers that are in the fitness space, and I was like, wow, like I'm not anything, I'm not shit. And so then my level of like what is good or what is standard just raised so much by being around those guys, or what's making a lot of money. Because I thought, oh, I'm making a lot of money because I'm making like $80,000 a year at one point, and then it's like you're around guys that are making $1 million, $5 million a year. Like, wow, okay, so it raises that set point, and then that becomes the new normal for you, and then everything kind of shifts that direction.
A lot of times when you spend time around those men that are like 2-3 steps ahead of you, you recognize too that there's not actually that big a difference between what you're doing and they're doing, but the small differences are really important differences.
100%.
And that's, a lot of people get stuck at a certain point because they don't know anyone who's doing better than them to go and ask, what did you do when you're at my place to bust through to the next level? And getting into groups, I suggest that men join, or if there isn't one in their area, they form a group of men, join a club. There's a whole bunch of them from different 21 convention speakers have started different groups. I don't want to mention one unless I mention all of them, so I prefer not to say any. But you go look up those groups. There is various fraternities out there that men can join, and they're going to have other men that they can ask, how did you bust through the level I was at? I'm stuck. I'm hit a plateau. How did you get past this plateau? And often it's very small tweaks, and it's a collection of small things that bust you through these levels. And if it was obvious, everyone would be super successful.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's 100% right. It is, it's like that 5 feet from gold. It's like the difference is so small, but it makes such a difference because of that compounding effect over time, that little bit of an edge, a little bit of a difference of doing things differently. Like, one of the examples I always use with guys is like diet, right? It's like, let's say that, if you eat 100 calories more than your maintenance is every day, or if you eat 100 calories less, and you play that forward for an entire year, it's going to be a huge difference, right? Just 100 calories, just an apple, like an apple a day more of food, essentially. One path, you'll become fat. You'll gain like 5-10 pounds of fat. The other path, you'll become ripped, and it's like that. It's not this huge thing. That's how small it is when you're on that precipice. And I think a lot of guys, they're on this precipice and they don't know which, they just need that little bit of a tweak in one direction in order to be successful. It's the same difference. Darren Hardy, I think, had a really good book called the Compound Effect, and he had 3 brothers in there that went down these 3 different life paths, very slight differences, but over like 20 years, it was huge life differences between one guy becoming financially successful and all these things, and another guy being broke and homeless. And it's like these small little tweaks that you can't see until you're around the right people.
Yeah, the successful life is made up of a million small good decisions. Avoid the big catastrophes and make a whole bunch of really good small decisions, and you'll be fairly successful in life. And the difference between the million and the 1,000,010 is sometimes all you need to get to a whole new level in life.
So guys, if you got some questions, drop them in the chat. By the way, it's not that I'm ignoring you guys in the chat, but I'm ignoring you guys in the chat because a lot of you guys are losers. Not all of you guys, but I'm not banning you, as you've noticed, because I really just don't give a fuck about you. So keep on doing what you're doing. But if you guys have some legit questions, drop them in there. So one thing I wanted to shift to Noah to talk a little bit about is relationships, men in relationships, especially with women. I think this is something that I've been trying to address a lot in the kind of red pill type of community, because well, what's your view on this? What do you see happening now, and what do you see where we need to shift things in the message that we're giving guys today? Because I feel like it's not a great message that's out there for the most part.
Yeah, we have an underlying problem that a lot of men have been burned by a woman, very, very often a mother. The way they didn't get the love they needed from their mother. They never had in their formative years a good relationship with a woman. I was fortunate. My mother's kind of crazy. She was better when I was really young, but I had several grandmothers that were wonderful and spent a lot of time with me and helped me to understand how to interact with women in a way where I get what I want and everyone is happy. And so I had this foundation to understand that maybe I don't know everything what I'm doing, but it is possible to have good relationships. You know, I had friends of the family, they had good marriages, so I saw it was possible. And I think a lot of people haven't even seen that. You know, they're raised by a single mom. Single moms don't have happily married couple friends generally, because the wives in those relationships don't want the single mother around their husband. So they're often very, like, they're totally swimming in a gigantic lagoon of estrogen all their life. And that predisposes them to some bitterness. And on top, then they make some really bad decisions about women in the beginning of their, you know, the age that they start getting into relationships, and they get burned. And from that, they're very susceptible to falling into a victim mentality. They're susceptible to people who encourage them to see women as the enemy, rather than, I mean, there are things that certain women do that are absolutely toxic and horrible for society. But it is often in response to men.
Right. You
know, to a large extent, like I will meet women, they treat me awesome. Some other guy will tell me, oh yeah, she's a bitch.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the same woman? She was sweet to me. She was fine with me. I had no problem with her. Why did you have a problem with her? And it gets down to it that they come into it right off the bat, defensive, nervous, lacking self-confidence. If you lack self-confidence, a woman can smell that and she'll eat you alive. And that's her job. That's her job to do that. Her job is to weed the weak men out of the dating pool and push you guys out so that you go back, get strong, and come back to the dating pool later. And a lot of what women are doing is simply doing their job. They're the gatekeepers to reproduction. And if they're not supposed to let weak men reproduce, you know, that's dysgenic for society. That's destructive. That undermines society. And so they're doing their job. And a lot of times men are just angry at women for doing their job. Now, on the other hand, I think a lot of men underestimate how much of a victim women are of feminism.
Right.
You know, women are actually suffered more under feminism than men. You know, you see a overweight, angry, blue-haired, pierced up, tattooed feminist, and you go, oh, I hate listening to that. I hate seeing that. But can you imagine being that? Can you imagine being tricked into thinking that that's a lifestyle? So they have no empathy for how these women have been tricked. And I don't think we can help those women, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're too far gone. And I mean, even just the idea of, like, you know, I think just the way that women have to behave in society today, just the idea of, like, you know, I always tell guys this, it's like, yeah, it's hard to be a guy for sure. You know, definitely women select the top 10% of guys, but, you know, or top 5% really. But it's not that hard to beat out 19 other guys today, to be honest with you. Like, that's what that's always been my message. It's like, be a top 5% guy, because really you don't have a lot of competition. I mean, back in the day when guys fucking like you were just saying, when they're like, yeah, I'll go ahead and pay in blood to vote. Then okay, you had some competition there, but today not very much competition. But yeah, for females also, you know, just the idea of, like, you know, I think about, what if you had to put on makeup every day for an hour, and in order to just be acceptable, and you know that your entire, like, you know, life is fake, that it's not true. You don't have, you know, you've got these desires for that are built within you biologically for a dominant masculine man, but that goes against what society says. So you're conflicted internally. I mean, there's a lot of difficulty. And then also you have all these weak men that are vying for your attention, that are angry at you when you don't give it. There's, you know, it's definitely messed up women, because, you know, especially when they become older, right?
Imagine being 18 and realizing that you're at the peak of your sexual attractiveness and it's never going to get better.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not easy. That's tough. As men, we can be very unsuccessful in our teens and early 20s, and we can go, yeah, don't worry, I'll be fine by the time I'm 30. Everything will be great by the time I'm 30. I'm going to catch up, and we can be working hard and catching up and improving. And basically, we just get, if you're a top tier man, you never stop getting better until you're like 70. You just keep getting better. Your life gets better. The women that are around you get better. And if you're a woman, it's like you're in your late teens, early 20s. That's as good as it gets for your ability to attract a mate. And aside from a small percentage of women that will be successful in their career, everything hinges on you finding a good man.
Yep.
And then you're looking through this basically pile of shit for a diamond. It's not easy.
And see, this is what one of the messages I wish these younger guys, especially some of the younger guys in the chat, they don't get. They don't understand that, they call us boomers and everything, but they don't understand that, like, guys like us that are at our peak, that we are at our peak, that's the women that they're trying to get that are in their 20s, they're actually more attracted to guys that are at this level. And I say this not as in a like, braggadocious type of way. I say this because I want these guys to understand that they need to put in the work and invest in themselves now to reap the rewards later. So many guys are trying to, they're trying to, burn the candle very quickly right now. They're living for today, and they don't realize that, the reason why life is so hard for them is because regardless of what society says and what, of what people think about it, women always prefer the more grounded, mature, stronger man, assuming that he has actually built himself up physically, that he knows who he is, that he's grounded, that he's built up financial resources and become, that man. And so a lot of these guys are so focused on trying to get everything now, and they're sacrificing their long-term game when their long-term game is the thing that's really, I always tell guys, like, in your 30s, your mid 30s or even your late 30s, that's when you're going to be most successful, especially with women. And that's how it's been throughout history. When you look at that, this is and so so I don't know, like I feel like it's such a bad thing that these guys don't understand this, and if they could understand it, they would live their lives a lot differently.
Well, there's two groups of people that complain about 40-year-old men dating 20-year-old women, and that is 40-year-old women and 20-year-old men. So of course they're going to complain because it's cutting into their sexual market value. Women who are 40 complain that 40-year-old men want to date 20-year-old women. Men who are 20 complain that 20-year-old men want to date 20-year-old women want to date 40-year-old men, because it's cutting into their sexual market value.
Right, exactly.
The complaint is completely understandable. It's just wrong. It's ignoring human nature. And I can understand it because it's causing them some pain. But I know clients that if you look at them, you'd be like, no, it probably doesn't get too much attention. They're dating a different really attractive woman every 3 months or so, and they're complaining to me like, oh yeah, I haven't like got a ring on one yet because it just doesn't work out for logistically or something. And they don't understand that a lot of guys, they'd love to be dating a different attractive woman every 3 months, and they're not even getting in. Other guys aren't even getting into relationships, and these are young guys that sometimes they don't have a job. They're not like, it's not like they're super buff and everything. They have confidence. They go out and they talk to women, and they don't have any fear to try. This is part of the reason. I got more attention since I got married from women by far than I ever got when I was single, because women don't see a married man as, first of all, there's social proof that somebody thinks you're attractive.
Right.
And second of all, there's the fact that I don't care what they think.
Right.
And
exactly.
I'm totally not caring. They're almost asexual to me because I don't care. And you have to cultivate that if you're a man in order to stay, to fulfill your marriage vows. I don't care. And because I don't care, now I become more attractive.
Yep. No, 100%.
And I totally understand it if you're 20 and nobody's touched you in a year and you're like desperate for attention. I understand that, man. You're in pain, You need to go out and take control of what you can control in your life and stop worrying about women.
Yeah,
You know,
no,
do everything else, and the women takes care of itself.
Yeah, I wish some of these guys could experience what it's like to be me or to be you, and to see this, because they won't understand it until they're there. But they're never going to get there because they don't have the right mindset to get there, unfortunately. But if they could see, you know, for example, what my life is like, I think it would change their mind. I think they would, if they could see through my eyes and see what I see, it would change their mind, and they would realize, like you said, that what they need to do is be investing them in themselves right now and building up to the point, because you can have that life that they think that they can have now, because it's not, again, I think a lot of guys don't understand the gender dynamics. They don't understand that it's baked in, that you know, they see male and female attraction is the same, and it's not the same, and it never will be the same. And so
Well, the feminist propaganda was not just aimed at women, it was aimed at men as well. And I'm getting comments sometimes, and I look at the comment and I'm like, I'm not sure if a feminist wrote it or a man who is basically thinking like a feminist, but thinks that he's totally against that narrative. The narrative has gone so deep that even people who want to reject it are still fundamentally thinking that way. They're fundamentally thinking that men and women think the same way, more or less, about sex, that they want more or less the same things. And I'm always surprised when, despite all the things that men like you and I have been exposing for years about this, there's still a lot of that overlap. And I think I mentioned before, a lot of men who have been through a lot of suffering, you know, I'm not saying these men are trash. I'm saying they're behaving like they're trash. Mm-hmm. You know, lots of awesome, good men who are super successful in their 30s were kind of losers in their 20s.
Yeah, that was me. I was a loser in my 20s, pretty much. So
yeah. I got clients that were fat, didn't make any money, didn't date through their entire 20s. Now they're in their 30s and they're super fit. They're dating an awesome woman. They're making tons of money, you know, high six figures. And this is the difference of 10 years. But they had to suffer through that to realize that feeling sorry for themselves wasn't going to get them anywhere. It was action. And they tell me, like, oh man, I wish I hadn't wasted so much time doing nothing, feeling bad for myself. And maybe that was what they needed to do. Maybe the suffering was necessary for them to understand that change was necessary, that they needed to follow a different plan. But if you're a young man and you're pursuing a course and it's continually failing, continuing to pursue that course is insanity.
Exactly, 100%.
You got to do something different. And if you don't know what to do different, talk to a man who's more successful, wherever you find that. You know, might not be the same man. Maybe you talk to one man about career, another about relationships. But talk to a man who's more successful, who's older than you. Figure out what he did to become successful. Maybe talk to several, and from that, create a plan for your life.
100%. Let me see. Let me grab a couple of super chats here. Geek Mode School of React Native. Thank you. He says, men must put themselves first. Stop putting others' comfort before your own. I totally agree with that. You have to be selfish to be altruistic. You know, if you can't give what you don't have. And then my man John, from Modern Life Dating, with the 12,000 yen. I have to do a conversion on that, but he says, take my money and support Bulldog Mindset. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for chipping in and watching. So, but yeah, you know, it's so true what you said is that finding models, finding people that are already successful doing what you want to do is like one of the greatest hacks in life, you know, that you can have. And I'm amazed by, and I didn't discover this for a long time, right? I have coaches now, I like, you know, for everything that I want to do, because I realize that, like, if someone else is doing it and I want to do it, that's the person to talk to, rather than trying to figure this stuff out on my own. And I spent so much time figuring it out on my own. But I don't know. I mean, not very many guys. It seems like everyone is trying to either forge their own path, or they're like following people that speak in theoretical, and that's, but it's kind of hard sometimes, I think, to figure out who to follow, right? I always say to not look at what people say, but to look at their actions.
And I think a lot of times you're going to follow the guy that tells you the thing that makes you most uncomfortable, and that's going to be the one that's going to make you most successful. Because if a guy is catering to what you want to hear, he's just blowing wind up you. He's not telling you the truth. He's going to keep you in the place you're in. He's going to let you stew in your own anger and your own frustration with life. And the guy who's going to get you out of that is the one who's going to tell you what you've been doing wrong, and he's going to make you uncomfortable, and he's going to make you stronger by making you uncomfortable and get you out of your rut.
Now, what do you think about how men should handle relationships with women? Again, going kind of back on that subject, we talked a little bit about how there's sort of this woman hating, like blaming women type of thing. I've always said that women are a reflection of the man that they're with in a relationship. Would you agree with that? What's kind of the rationale behind that, if you do agree?
I think for healthy women will reflect the man that they're with, and unhealthy men have to develop a filter to push those women away. I get them on social media because it's a low effort for them to interact with me. So I usually block them instantly, but I do that in real life too. I block them.
Right.
They don't come into my life. Right. I don't have shit tier women in my life. I don't let them be near me. I value myself. I value my family enough that I don't let people like that in my social circle. And my wife's great too about making sure that she doesn't end up collecting, loser friends. Her friends are great people too. And men need to do that. They need to go and create this filter that pushes crappy women away. One of the main reasons why good women aren't coming to you is because you're surrounded by crappy women.
Right.
And good women are extremely intolerant, just like good men. They're intolerant of low quality people. Yeah. And so you first need to get rid of all the people that aren't of the quality that you want, because you need to create space. You can't bring new people into your life if your life is full of people that those new people don't want to be around. So you got to bring good people into your life. And the second thing is that we aren't made to do relationships in a vacuum. We're made to, historically we would have had our family. We would have been able to go and ask our dad, like, hey, I like so-and-so, and we've been dating for a while. What do you think of her? And your dad's like, son, I've been around for a while, and I know this woman, she's crazy. Or maybe she's great, go for it. We always had the support of our community. Nowadays, a lot of men, they have no friends. They think somehow they're going to go find a woman. They can't make friends with a man, but they think somehow they can find a woman to date. First, you go and you find some men to be friends with, so that when you're dating, somebody's got your back.
Yeah. No,
someone's there to go, you're being stupid, you're getting played, stop it.
Yep.
Because that's what men will do for each other. And then you're ready to go out and start dating. And when you do date, I think what's important is, we talk about men need to put themselves first. What it is you don't just need to put yourself first. You need to put the vision of what kind of a man you want to be first. Basically that means putting your honor first. You need to say, this is the man I want to be, and everything gets sacrificed to become that man. That man, that might include, my case, I want to be a father. I want to be a husband. That's part of what I want. And so my sense of development of who I want to be includes that. Therefore, I naturally pick a woman who fits into that lifestyle.
Right.
There's a lot of low agency. Oh, the heart wants what it wants. Sounds extremely feminine, but I've heard men say it too. You just fall in love. You can't control who you fall in love with. That's absolute bullshit. You decide what kind of life you want, and then you find a woman that will fit into that life. And that's what women want too. They don't want to come along with a guy and the guy says, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? What kind of life do you want to have? I don't know. They hate that. They want to almost be told that this is the deal. If you're with me, if you like it, stay. If you don't, take a hike, and they 100%. Will respond to that. They'll adjust. All of a sudden, their hopes and dreams line up with yours mysteriously, and they will internalize what it is that you want out of life. And if they don't, you don't want to be with them.
Yep.
That's as easy as that.
100%. Yeah, a lot of what you're describing, I would call standards, right? Guys don't have standards today, and women respect a guy with standards. And if you have standards, you're not going to let certain people into your life because you're going to filter them out, because you're going to say, hey, that's fine, but peace. Take a hike. It's good. Yeah, no, I'm not angry, but yeah, you can get out. Get out now. I don't need you anymore, because you got standards, and you make that choice. It's like you said about, just the heart wants what the heart wants. Well, yeah, but as men, we're analytical and logical, and we have control over our emotions. We have emotional mastery. So we say we did make decisions, and I really like this idea that you said about deciding who the man you want to become is, and then sacrificing everything else for that. I think that's what you had said, or the equivalent of that. And it's so damn true. It's like, if you start with that in mind, I think that was the thing that really led to my transformation in life. As I said, who's the guy that I want to become? I had this vision in my head, and that was what I was like, okay, well, what has to change? What do I have to pay? What's the price? Because everything has a price in order to become that guy. And that's what, it completely changed my life. Because if I keep on trying to like just change behaviors or change habits, it doesn't work. You go on a diet, you end up falling off the diet. But when you have that vision of who's the man that you want to become, then you have a clear direction that you're going towards. And I think that's so important. So many guys are, they don't have that. They don't have that vision. They don't have any standards. I was just had one of my coaching clients the other night, and he was like, some girl flaked on him, and I was like, well, what did you say? And he's like, oh, well, I was like, yeah, not a big deal. We could just meet up another night. I understand. And I was like, why didn't you say, I was like, is that what you really thought? He's like, well, I mean, I was kind of disappointed. Like, I was like, then why didn't you say, like, I don't like when people waste my time. Right. Because that's what you really, right. And he's like, well, because then I might upset her, and then I might not hear from her again. I'm like, this is what a standard is. It's like, you have to say that, because if you say that and she's like, well, fuck you then, like, I don't like your attitude, then you're like, okay, bye. That's good. That's it. Like this
and
is
what? Women have really good lie detectors. They don't know they don't always know what the truth is, but they can tell you're lying, and if you tell them you're okay with something that you're not, if you're bending to them, they sense that. Because I have female clients as well, and they'll tell me, yeah, like, I don't know what it is. And they're describing it. I'm like, I know what it is. I've seen it a million times from coaching a million people, that what's happening is he's simping for you, and it's turning you off. It's literally turns their stomach.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
They feel sick to their stomach over it. And they're like, I like the guy and everything, but I'm not going to go on another date with him.
Yeah.
Happens every time. The more that you stick with your boundaries, the more attractive you are to women. And women who don't like that, you don't want in your life anyway.
Exactly. It's the whole filtering process of being able to be the most powerful agency. We're talking about agency that you have as a man is your ability to walk away. That's like the power that no one can ever take that power from you. And that's the one that so many guys give up so quickly. And it's amazing. And it's women, and when I talk to women about it too, they're like, oh yeah, I'll just keep on, they're disgusted, and then they'll continue to walk all over you just to see how far they can push you, how much of a nice guy that you are. And the more that they get away with it, the more it disgusts them, because they're like, I can't believe this guy has no backbone. In fact, one thing that I do when I have coaching clients come to me in person is, if I have a new coaching client and I'm meeting them in person, I will actually just I'll give the guy a shove, right? And then I'll keep on shoving him. I'll shove him a little bit harder. I'll see how many times do I shove him before he shoves me back or does something or says, hey, stop it. A lot of times guys are so afraid of confrontation and conflict that they'll apologize to me. They'll be like, oh, sorry, I sorry. And I'm like, why are you apologizing? I'm just shoving your ass and you're apologizing to me. And it's amazing. And it just shows I do that to see where they're at. Right. And it's crazy, because if I can shove you and you don't do shit, then women are just, they must be just having a heyday with, they must be walking all over you. And that's kind of what I think when you talked about women are the ultimate testers, that's what they're kind of filtering out. They want to see, like, if you're going to take shit from a woman, you're going to take shit from every guy that pushes you around.
Well, and worse, what she's testing too is you're going to take shit from your kids. She's testing to see, like, what kind of a man will you be? Will you be a provider and a protector? And will you be the father to my children that I need? Because that's deep down in the heart of every fertile woman is this guy going to be a good dad for my kids? And I'll tell you something, kids push you. Like, they really push you hard. I've got 3 boys. They're all super dominant. They're all they're trying to push each other, push me, push their mom. And you gotta hold tight to your frame when you're dealing with kids, or you're going to be yelling and screaming at them all the time. And they understand, like, what happens when you've gone a long time without the proper sleep you need because you got babies and they're sick or whatever. And then on top of that, people are trying to push you around. You're going to explode. You're going to get violent. They want to know what's going to happen when you're under stress. And if you don't fail, and the worst part is if you fail that test, they tell every one of their friends how much of a loser you are.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, every woman in your town or whatever your city is going to know exactly who you are and what you are.
100%.
And then you've burned yourself there.
So I got one guy in here. I think he could probably use our help, and then I think maybe we'll wrap this up pretty soon here. But my dog is lazy. He says, I'm so desperate. A few years ago, I got arrested because of sexual harassment. I simply approach a girl and say, hey, I just find you attractive, blah, blah, blah. And then he said here, I did everything mystery method, day game, RSD material. I think I'm already spent like $5,000 in pickup material and still no success. What do you think about this? I figured we could give this guy a little bit of advice here. He seems like he really needs it.
Now, this isn't applicable to everybody, but when I was single, my dating process was I always dated people who had an overlapping social circle with mine. Mm-hmm. The reason was I could vet them a little bit first and make sure they weren't psychos. Because I was thinking, I don't want to waste my time. I was running a business. I was involved in a bunch of charity programs and stuff. I just didn't have time to date women who were going to, intentionally cause me trouble. And the problem with talking to random women is that there's like 1 or 2% of them are completely crazy, and they're going to do stuff like this. The more that you can meet women through your male friend network, cousins and sisters of your friends, the better quality you're going to be if you want a long-term relationship, that is. Okay, if you want a long-term relationship, the reason being is that you'll be able to vet her. And if your friend says, hey, yeah, I got a cousin and she's a great woman and yeah, you might want to date her, she's not going to burn you because she burns her cousin too.
Right.
She burns her social network. And even if you get married, if you get into a relationship with her and it goes farther and you have kids together, because of these overlapping social networks, your chance of divorce goes down to almost nothing. If my wife or I initiated a divorce, we have almost all our friends overlap, and almost all our friends are so anti-divorce, they go with whatever one wasn't the one that initiated the divorce.
Oh, interesting.
It would literally burn my life to initiate a divorce. And the same with my wife. It would burn her life. It's mutually assured destruction to ensure that your marriage will be successful.
I suppose if you want to go down that road. If you
want to go down that road.
Yeah.
If you're interested in dating only or just picking women up, that you're going to take some risks, but that's part of being a man, is taking risks.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would say with that, I agree with what you say about the long term and as far, especially if you're looking for marriage, which I don't know. I'm not so sure that I'm really thinking that's a good option for a lot of guys today. But if you are, what you said, I would 100% agree with. I would say, like, in general, for him here, obviously John says pick up body language mastery. I think that will help him for sure. But I'd say also, like, a lot of what I see with guys that that are doing approaches that are trying to like learn pickup and learn game is that they haven't worked on themselves internally first. Like, you know, if you're a masculine man, if you've worked on that and really being that guy, you already know what to say and what to do and how to behave. You don't really need someone to tell you. Some pointers could help you, but women are not generally going to cry sexual harassment on men who carry themselves in that way, who understand social interactions. And a lot of times what I see is guys not putting themselves in enough risk. It's sort of like not committing fully, not putting yourself fully out there. So if I were to run a race with someone, if they're like, okay, I bet I can beat you in a race, and then I run pretty hard, but not as hard as I could, and then I can always say at the end of the race, well, you know, I didn't give it my like, and maybe it's just not even that I want to say it to someone else. It's just my ego. I just feel like, well, I didn't really run as hard as I could, so I didn't really fail. But if I did, and so I see a lot of guys that are trying to learn some game or some pickup, is that's what they're doing, is they're basically going in there and they're saying hi, they're talking to women, they're having very platonic conversations, and like it doesn't work. And they're not actually taking the risk. They're not actually putting themselves out there to actually face a real rejection. Because if you go and talk to a random girl and you say, hey, I find you attractive, and then she says, no thanks, it's easy. You can just blow that off. You're not really putting yourself at risk. But if you really go in there and you really give it an effort, if you're really actually putting yourself out there, not just doing stuff that is going to get you a negative reaction, then your failure, that rejection is going to hit you a lot harder. And so you've got to like face that to be able to take things to the next level. I always equate it to is like, if you're, I drive my car every day. I put probably 10,000 hours worth of time into driving a car, but I'm not a NASCAR driver. I can't compete with those. Just doing something a lot doesn't make you better. Like doing something at the edge of your ability is what makes you better. So what I would say is that if you're having a lot of failure and you've tried a lot of things, you're not pushing to the edge of your ability. You actually have to push to the edge of your ability if you want to grow and advance in anything in life.
I've also noticed too that a lot of guys are concentrating on what they do and not concentrating on reading the woman. And that's part of it too. They're not reading any of the feedback they're getting. They're completely ignoring her feedback and just blowing through with their sales pitch. And that's going to be a problem as well. If you can't read the other person at all, you're much more likely to end up in a situation like that, because you don't know when to back off, or how to press forward in a way that's going to go past the objection and not get a worse objection. Because you can push on an objection and make it worse. You can push in a different way and make it better. And this is true in everything. Generally, men who aren't very good at negotiating with women aren't good at negotiating anywhere. Mm-hmm. They don't know how to get a raise. They don't know how to negotiate a good price for renting an apartment. They don't know how to negotiate with other human beings and get what they want in a mutually beneficial arrangement. And it just reflects in that one area. They put all their effort into there, but they're thinking of sales pitch instead of interaction, and what she gives you and what you give her, and doing that dance. They're more like, they're almost like grug hit over the head, drunk, put over the shoulder and go away. And that doesn't really work. There's got to be some interaction there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Developing those skills is so critical, and being able to say what I think what a lot of it comes down to is being able to say what you want as a man, right? Again, when I was talking about my coaching client with the text, it's like, just say what it is that you want, right? To communicate that, as opposed to asking permission, as opposed to like feeling things out and seeing how is this going to play out, but just putting yourself out there. And the same thing, like you said, with negotiations or anything, it's like the person who says what they want gets what they want. The person who beats around the bush doesn't get it. They're not, because a lot of it is avoiding that conflict, avoiding those uncomfortable situations that it's going to put you in when you say, in fact, it's funny. I have a couple of female coaching clients that I've been working with, And one of the things that they'll tell me is that, you know, it's refreshing if a guy's like, I just want to have sex, right? Like, I mean, a little bit of tact in that, but if he's just direct and straightforward, it's like, you know, what are you looking for? And he's like, well, I just want to have a good time. That's what I'm looking for. And then she's like, oh, that's great. Now I can operate on that, which is totally the opposite of what you would think, but it's true because it's refreshing that he's honest and that he's saying what he wants instead of like, you know, trying to hint at what he wants. Women tend to hint, and men tend to, you know, be direct and say, this is what I want. And I think so many guys are afraid of being direct, saying what they exactly want.
You brought up an interesting and important point. Women hint and men are direct. The problem, if you're a man and you're hinting, you know, women aren't looking for a same-sex relationship. They want a man. And if you're approaching them as if you were a woman, that isn't going to work. And that's why they get that gut feeling of like, something's off. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But they get like a little upset stomach. There's something wrong with this guy and the way he's approaching me. And that's going to trigger that. That's why they're thinking sexual assault, because they're thinking like,
yeah,
this is gross and creepy and something's wrong here. And they just want to get away. And it's because you're not being honest. You know, it's a lot of times it's put down to this guy's good looking. No, it's often the good looking guys are willing to tell you what they want, and the not good looking guys aren't, because of the confidence level they have.
Right.
But I know men that are not physically attractive that are very successful with women because they're incredibly honest with them. They just tell them the absolute truth. And the more that they do that, the more successful you'll be.
Yep. No, this is 100% true. It, you know, I forgot what I was going to say here. There was, someone was going to say about this, but, as far as, dang it, I had a good point that I'm losing now. Cause you're saying about being honest. Dang it, I lost it now. I don't know what it was, but it was
making a feminine approach as a man doesn't work.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't know what it was. There was something about that, about making a feminine approach as a man. I'm spacing out here. Damn it. I had something good about that, but yeah, but anyway, you know, guys that do that. Oh, it's like on the tip of my tongue. Like there's something about that. I don't know. Maybe we'll find it, but yeah, no, but it's very true that, you know, women are looking for men to be direct and not have that covert type of communication, because it's weak. It's something that women do. And when you have guys that are trying to hint at things, again, it makes them, it puts them in a weak. They're trying to avoid conflict. Oh, I know what I was going to say. This is what I was just stalling for time there. But I was going to say the difference between being creepy and bold, right? Because women don't like, a lot of guys, like you said, they say, well, it's creepy if you're not attractive. And that's not true. It's creepy if you put the burden of rejection or risk on her versus if you put it on yourself. So this is why it's like, if you're a guy and you're in a bar and you're holding your beer and you're staring at some girl, okay, she's like, that guy's creepy, right? It's because what you're trying to do is like, you don't want to come up and directly talk to her. You want her to like initiate, to look at you and to give you the okay. So you're putting the burden onto her, which makes it creepy. Or like if you try to like covertly like touch a girl or like brush against her or something like that, like that's creepy. Why is it creepy? It's because, again, you're basically putting you're taking all the risk away from you because, oh, I accidentally touched you. You see what I'm saying? Whereas now she's having to deal with that. Like, you're making her deal with the situation and make her uncomfortable as opposed to you being uncomfortable. Whereas a guy that is direct, that sees a girl, let's say in the bar, and he walks right up to her and he's honest. He doesn't have some kind of pretense. He's not like, oh, I really like your purse or what, you know what I mean? Saying something stupid like that, but he's direct. He's who he is. He's not pretending to be something. He's never going to come off as creepy, even if he's 3 feet tall and bald. It doesn't fucking matter because he's being he's being honest and direct, and he's putting all the risk on himself as opposed to putting the risk on her. And that's kind of how I see it. Is like, that again, like you said, with the sexual harassment, it's the same thing. Is like, guys that get sexual harassment charges are not guys that are operating in a straightforward manner. It's when you're trying to like do something sneaky so that you don't have to face rejection or risk. That's when that sets off that spider sense that something's wrong here, type of thing.
Well, they want you to be the man in the relationship so they can be the woman.
Yeah.
They can't do that if you're not. Like, if you're looking for something equal, where there's an equal amount of effort put by both to get things going, or even worse, like you said, you're expecting her to kind of initiate things, and women aren't going to want that. And the worst is, any woman who is okay with that is going to try to be dominant throughout your entire relationship. It means she's basically looking for, a fleshy dildo, and that's not as fun as it might sound.
You guys are like, all right, I'm sorry.
Really like to be emasculated and cheated on and used for your resources, then look for a woman that will, that getting her to initiate and take all of the effort to be the man in the relationship. That's how you'll find that kind of a woman. You'll find the exact kind of woman that you deserve based on your actions. And if you're finding poor quality women who are like that, then you need to take a different set of actions.
100%. All right, I guess we should probably wrap things up here. We've gone on for a while, but I appreciate you coming on here, Noah. And this is a good conversation. We've got a little bit of trolls in the chat here, but that's all right. Hopefully these guys, I like to have these guys in here. Like, I don't ban them, and because I like them to hear the message, because even though like they're like, oh yeah, they're like resisting it. It's kind of like, I remember, it's like if you get someone to go to church for like, you get them just to sit there for like 6 weeks or so. It's like something will sink in. Like, you know what I mean? It's like maybe they may not convert, whatever to, and I don't care what religion you guys are, but what I'm saying is that, you hear the preaching enough times, and then, at some point, like it starts to change you from the inside out. So that's what I hope that we're able to do here with these guys. So
there's another advantage too. They act as a counterexample to us. So when we're describing weak men,
right.
they provide that example for us, so that it doesn't sound like we're making things up. We can say, yeah, there's some in the chat. You can identify them, and other men will go to look, and they'll go, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. That's exactly how they act. Oh, look, they get triggered exactly by the things you say. And look, any man that gets triggered by a YouTube video that he's watching is exactly the kind of man that needs to watch these videos, because he needs help.
Yeah, very, very true. Very, very well put. I don't think I could put it better myself, but yeah. So accurate. So Noah, where can people go to find out more about you, and to anything you'd like to promote?
Yeah, you can find me on smv4k.com. You can also type in noahrevoy.com. I'm going to be changing all my websites and branding over to my own name. That's my market studies have said that's what I should be doing. And you can see me also on the Patriarch Hour almost every week. If you go on YouTube and look for the Patriarch Hour, I do that show with James Fox Higgins, where we talk about issues that affect men who are leading in their communities, and how to be a better man in leadership of a community. So there's a lot of deep discussions there on the history of how we organize society, and how men themselves can become better, and how they can organize into groups. And really, it's about rebuilding a lot of what we lost in Western civilization, recreating the stability that allows a lot of the problems that the men are complaining about to be resolved by preventing the weak men from ever being weak in the first place. Allowing them to be raised with the right kind of masculine influence from a young age, so they don't have these questions when they're in their 20s and 30s. We don't have to waste a decade of our life if we're raised right. And that's really the long-term goal, is more and more young men being raised right.
Awesome. I like that. That's really good, guys. Definitely go check it out at smv4k.com right now, or noahrevoy.com. And then the podcast again is called the Patriarch Hour. Was it? What did you say it was?
Yeah, Patriarch Hour on YouTube.
Perfect. Awesome. All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks again, Noah.
Thank you very much.